Hello and welcome to HOA. I'm your host, Gavin, and we are going to be talking about some cryptids. Yes, we are going to be talking about the biblical side of cryptids. You heard it, the biblical side. And you might be asking, is that possible? I don't think there's such a thing. Oh, but there is. There's a huge wormhole that you could go into. There's a conspiracy, if you will, to cover this up from Old Testament, from Nephilims and fallen angels and giants. So, we're going to get into this a little bit, and I guess my first question to the listeners is, do you believe? Do you believe in the giants? Do you believe in the Nephilim? Are they a possibility in your mind? If they're written in Old Testament, then you must, right? Is that something that we leave out? I am not a believer of Christ in particular. I believe that there are many gods. I believe that this God might have been one of them. But we're going to attack this from the logical standpoint of somebody who believes in the Bible. And I want to see if I can maybe change some minds. Now, I've done a lot of research over the years, and it doesn't make me an expert. It's just something I've looked into as a hobby, and I think we're ready. I think we're ready to dive into this. So, in the beginning, there were fallen angels. I think we're all pretty well acquainted with that. There were angels that had fallen to earth, and Lucifer was not the only one. They fell in love with God's creations, and they produced what's called a Nephilim, I believe. Now, this is me going off the top of my head from what I remember, so some of this stuff could be a little messed up, but my point still stands. And the more that you do research into like Nephilims and giants, the more that you can kind of see where I'm trying to go here. So, anyway, we got Nephilims. Nephilims were described in a couple different ways, but I believe from what I was hearing, giants were one of the products or known as Nephilims. These fallen angels mated with humans and created giants, and the giants are in the Bible. So you have this magic being, right? And just stay with me now. And they created giants. Now it says that was one of the things God intended to take out with the flood. But there are also stories within the Bible that maybe he didn't take out all of them. Maybe there was a small tribe that did survive. So you have these magical creatures, giants, who were hunted, were killed. You have the David versus Goliath. There are giants in history. We don't have bones of them, but why? We have bones of dinosaurs. Well, dinosaurs there were millions and millions of them. They were very special circumstances where they were preserved. And over that long period of time, under natural circumstances, that same thing wouldn't happen. So we don't have any solid physical evidence that giants have existed. There's some photos around the internet that claim to be real, footsteps, pictures, and everybody knows how the cryptid story goes, but nothing solid, right? So we're going to look into this, and how is this possible? And maybe how does this connect to other cryptids? So let's say that you do subscribe to this, that you are a Christian, you do believe that Nephilims existed because it says in the Bible. You do believe that giants existed because it does say so in the Bible. That you're not treating this as some kind of analogy for some kind of superhuman or a race of humans that were just genetically bigger than everyone else. So this is where and by the way, they mentioned these giants being red-haired. So it's funny because the Bible, Middle Eastern, and I think, origin in they're finding red-haired giants. Now, those aren't typically of Middle Eastern descent. The way that they talk about them, it almost feels like they're from a different region. They're from a different region of people. So maybe this is how they took it, but maybe these were just really big people, right? Who knows? But here we go. So you have these fallen angels who fell in love with God's creations. And they mated with God's creations. Now, they don't follow the same rules as us. There's not like a weird taboo. They're already taboo. They have already fallen. And they've fallen in love with these creatures. They're falling in love with snakes, with monkeys, with, vampire bats, let's say. So, moths. You see where I'm starting to go with this? So they fall in love with these, and they have these babies, or they create these babies, and they're all sorts. They come in all walks. Let's say you fall in love with an orangutan or a gorilla as a fallen angel. Now they're going to retain some humanoid, or you would think anyway, they would retain some kind of humanoid appearance. Well, monkey plus humanoid, wouldn't that equal like a Bigfoot? And what if through the thousands of years of being persecuted and hunted, the magic that these Bigfoot retained, the able to reproduce, through whatever magic was instilled into them by their magical fathers, what if they were able to evade people and reproduce for a long time? You have something magical who can choose to be seen or not seen, or maybe when they're not paying attention, they're not, let's say activating this magic. And man, this sounds super tinfoil hat, but we're just going, right? We're just thinking theoretically here. Like, so you have these creatures, and you're always catching like side profiles of them walking through the woods. And as soon as they realize that you see them, poof, they're disappeared. Poof, you can't ever get them good on camera. What if there's something limiting you from seeing that? But they have some little bit of magical power that is helping conceal them, keep them away from the human's eye. They were never meant to see them. So you have an explanation for Bigfoot, right? It's a Nephilim, watered down descendant of a Nephilim, right? At one point, they were probably much bigger. Maybe they were the giants, right? Maybe they're like that big hairy Titan from Attack on Titan at one point. Who knows? So you have one possibility, but in the Bible, it does say that they fell in love with all of God's creations. Does that mean not only were we falling in love with humans, maybe monkeys, but what about moths? Maybe that would explain Mothman. Maybe that would explain some of the power that you've seen, where it would be attracted to natural disasters before it happens. And how would it know about these natural disasters? Would there be some kind of magical ability it would possess from a fallen angel? Maybe it knows part of the plan. Maybe something along those lines. What about chupacabra? What would you, as an animal, what would you compare that close to? What, like a vampire bat or a mosquito mixed with a humanoid figure? What about that? If something that sucks the blood, something that kills animals and just drinks the blood, you could connect that with a vampire. Do I think those existed? I don't know. But again, we're on the biblical side of things. What if these are demons, right? What if chupacabras are just demons? I don't know. I don't think that's possible. I don't think demons can inhabit much physically right now. I think they have. I do believe in demons. And you might say, Gavin, if you don't technically believe in the Bible, can you believe in demons and angels? And yeah, well, I'm kind of an equal opportunist, right? I believe in everything. It's not that I don't believe in a certain thing, it's that I believe in everything. So I think that there's equal opportunity for all to have been, whether we're on the right timeline for that and explaining that, like maybe at one point there were pagan gods and they were killed out by Christian gods, and maybe there were other lower gods that have been killed out, or because of belief or popularity, they've been reduced to weak husks of what they used to be. There's a lot of gods, Slavic, Greek, those kind of gods like that, like have been, pushed and persecuted and of course covered up for some reason, right? Like everyone knows they exist, but man, Christianity really snuffed them out. So I don't hate Christianity, but I don't like how they snuff out and reword. They go over pagan holidays and rename them, and look up like the Easter, Easter, look that up. So we're getting past the point, but at least you know now a little bit more background into my belief on this. So you have these chupacabras, you have these like duendes. It's like a little Mexican gnome that runs around clipping fingernails or I'm sorry, toenails, and sometimes clips off bad children's toes. You have gnomes, you have all sorts of little creatures that run around the night. What about fae, What if fae were just Nephilim mating with bugs? Again, they don't follow the same rules as us. They don't see, well, I can't mate with bugs. They don't have that human, ideology. They're magical beings. They can do it with whatever. And what are these fae are just magical beings, So I guess if you really wanted to more strict into the Bible part of this, right, the fae might not exist. And that's okay. Again, like I said, I'm open to all, so I kind of leave the possibility for all creatures. But let's stick to the main cryptids here. We have explained kind of a little bit about Bigfoot, how that could have been. Giants maybe could have came, as years have gone by, reproduction and magic level, you're watering down the descendants of this. It's not like they can stay pure after years and years. Like, you're going to start to lose that. It's almost like if you were born, or if your family was born in Asia, and after 300 years, 400 years, you're such a small percentage if your family has been marrying and reproducing with other heritage, cultures, races, whatever, however you'd like to explain it. But you're such a low percentage of what you originally were after 400 to 500 years. What if, right? I mean, it's a possibility that maybe these Bigfoot Nephilim creatures can't reproduce. Maybe they've been stuck for 4 or 5, 1,000 years. So, which would suck, by the way. But I don't think that. I think they were able to reproduce, personally. I think that because of the way that the human lifespan has gotten shorter and shorter ever since, I believe, we gained the free will, that I think Bigfoot and all those other creatures, I think they have a limited lifespan as well. Maybe theirs is longer because of their magic, but as they've gotten diluted over the years, it's dwindled. So it's an interesting concept, right? Like, so let's try and find another one. What about witches? What if these were somebody, maybe a fallen angel mated with a human, and it created someone who could see the future, or someone who could have some kind of manipulation. And over the years, it was just kind of muddied down. And I don't mean witches in the sense of like, ooh, hang over your crock pot with your warty nose, but witches in the fact that they seem to have some kind of weird power, right? Like, not the witches that have to throw spells and has to be super ornate, but I'm thinking more of like, maybe witches isn't the right word, but I think you understand what I mean. You have all these spiritual little beings, and you have, let's say, sea serpents, magical sea serpents that you see on maps. Some of them can be explained. Some of them are just oarfish. Some of them can't be explained. Like the Loch Ness Monster, things like that. Like, what's the possibility? So, like, let's say I'm subscribing to the fact that dinosaurs existed, which, by the way, you have to think that, even if you're a Bible thumper, right? Like, you can't ignore bones, right? Like, I live in a small town, and they were digging up a channel to go to, like, across the street for a culvert, and they found mastodon bones. Mastodon. So we're talking, a couple tens of thousands of years ago. So you can't deny that there are bones, that there are dinosaur bones, that there are bones of creatures that came before us. It's a fact, right? You can't deny it. So maybe we just come to terms that we weren't his first project. Maybe we were his first human project, right? And he doesn't mention any of the things before us because it wasn't important. Okay, so let's just accept that, okay? Let's just accept that there's reason why they don't mention dinosaurs or any of these, large animals from 10 to 20,000 years ago, because we weren't supposed to know about them then. God, they could barely knew anything back then. I mean, they had a decent understanding, but, at one point, these were all mystical creatures they were seeing, dragons and this and that. Who knows if dragons existed? It could have been just dinosaurs, and who knows if, giants, maybe they were just left over from the prehistoric world. I know it says that they were created, but when? So let's subscribe together that we weren't the first project, right? There were other projects. We were the first human project. He created us in his image. He didn't create those in his image. He was just trying it out, right? He had a good run. You gotta think, man, 65 million years ago, he thought he spaced it out well enough that maybe we wouldn't be able to be advanced enough at some point to tell what these were. Maybe that was the original intent. Maybe that's just, maybe I cracked the code right there. Maybe we didn't anticipate on being technologically advanced enough to understand the origins of the dinosaurs, that they were the first project, or that the life he created was the first project. Maybe Adam and Eve happened, but maybe that wasn't until he wiped all the dinosaurs and made a clean slate. I mean, relatively speaking, it was not that long ago. Dinosaurs 65 million years ago, if you do believe the time. I do. I think there's good scientific data to back that up. Some people don't. That's fine. But, I mean, the human creation, whether or not you believe God did it, has always been relatively new as far as the world has been concerned. So, yeah, I mean, so is it possible? I think so. If I subscribed to the Bible, 100%, for me to do that, I would have to also believe that these things exist from the Bible, because I do believe in cryptids. I do think that there is a lot that we don't understand. I think that we are such a new race, and we always think we have everything figured out till we don't. And I think we've been met with that multiple times. It's like we think we know all the animals. We find a new one. We think we're as advanced as we can be for a little while, and then we come across a new advancement. So, I really do think if you were to take the biblical approach to this, and you really should go through the wormhole, look at the Old Testament, look at Nephilims, look how giants were created, and look into that story, and then tell me that it doesn't somehow make a little bit of sense, how it's not plausible if you do believe in God. So that's basically where I'm coming down with this, and that's probably where I'll kind of leave you to really think about this and form your own opinion on it. But that's kind of where I wanted to kind of go. We've gotten a little off topic here and there, but that's really the basis. Do you believe in cryptids? And if you do, here's the Bible sort, here's the Christian report of how maybe that could have been possible. And I'm just trying to get you thinking a little, get your brain moving, and try to point you in another direction. So let's look them up, look some YouTube videos, look up some podcasts, look into what the Old Testament really says in regards to these creatures. And I really want to hear from you guys. So with that, I will bid you adieu, and I hope both sides of your pillow are cold, your coffee is always hot, as long as you want it hot. And I hope your truck tires always have air. I hope your batteries are always full in all of your equipment. And I hope you have a great day.